Thanks for joining us on the AZ Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Mike Luke. It's brought to you by DraftKings. Great deal going on with Wild Card Weekend right now. You throw down $5 on an NFL game, Wild Card Weekend, and if your team wins, you get $280 in free plays. It's that simple. It's that easy. So go ahead and make that one happen there at the DraftKings Sportsbook app. And just so all you know, that's where you should be. With Bruce Pascoe, I am merely Mike Luke. Hello, Bruce. How you doing, my man?
Good, Mike. Thanks for having me. How you doing?
I appreciate you coming on. Just so you know, and I always tell this story quite a bit, but I'm going to tell the story again. Bruce, you know what? When everybody's trying to cut their teeth, getting out of school, what am I going to do with my first job? Bruce had about the first job that I don't know that you would necessarily say that it was ideal, but I don't know that you wouldn't say it was ideal either. Bruce, why don't you just briefly fill people in on what you got, what you're doing, and I got a story about the magazine that I got behind me right there.
Yeah, no, I was lucky, pretty soon out of college covering UNLV for the Las Vegas Review-Journal, and it was the best thing about it. Not only were they really playing well at the time, this is early 90s, but it was just, kind of a learning experience. I mean, because you literally covered everything. You covered basketball, you covered human interest, you covered courts, you covered cops, you covered NCAA issues. And it was just sort of, I just got thrown in the fire, in my, beginning off. And I think it's just kind of stuck with me, and it's kind of helped me down the road as things kind of come and go on this beat, covering Arizona now.
It's safe to say that you spent more time in courtrooms in Las Vegas than you have in Tucson?
Yeah. I have spent some in here. I mean, I can go back to Hassan Adams had a DUI case. I had to sit through that whole thing. There's been plenty of other, court and cop issues, but not to that level at UNLV. And lately, not almost at all. It's been, it's been a different deal for sure. But occasionally, I mean, there's always issues with every team, and the way it works.
All right, Bruce, let's talk the transition from Sean Miller to Tommy Lloyd. On the court, it's very difficult to say that this hasn't been a resounding success. You watch how this team plays, you watch how they get up and down, and you always would hear Coach Miller say that we're going to get up and down, we're going to run. Never really happened. Tommy Lloyd doesn't really need to tell you that he's going to run. You're going to watch it out there on the court.
Yeah, I mean, that was I think it's one of those deals where you want to, every recruit wants to hear that you run. And, and to give Miller credit, there were some teams that ran more than others. I mean, he did adapt a little bit to his style of personnel. He would adapt his style of personnel. But I think, what we're seeing now is you've got a philosophy with Tommy Lloyd that's basically, we're going to run as much as possible. That's first and foremost. And he's finding guys that fit that. And I think that's why I kind of shook out the way, some of the guys that he talked into coming back, and, like Kirk Risa, for example, I think because he knew that he could fit in this system. And I think going forward, he's looking for recruits that'll fit it as well. So it's a little bit different. And yeah, it should be, it should be easy for him to sell that to guys. I know I just saw something the other day where, Kylan Boswell, the point guard in 2023, the 5-star they're looking at, was talking about Arizona style of play. And you got to think that this is going to help them get a guy like him down the road, just because he doesn't have to talk. He can, Tommy Lloyd can just point to the stats, and it's pretty clear what a point guard or anybody else would be doing in the system if they come to Arizona.
Bruce, it's a little different, but you were able, obviously you covered UNLV in its heyday, which was known for running, getting up and down, the amoeba defense. You covered Lute Olson through his peak. When did you start? 97? No, here I didn't cover them until 99. I played baseball when I first came here, and I thought for a while there I might have, I came in the mid 90s, and I thought maybe, we were covering pro sports in Phoenix at that time, and I wasn't sure the Diamondbacks were coming. They were, they were just being born basically, and so I thought that was a possibility, and then we shuffled some things around and ended up covering Arizona, which has worked out really well. And it's just, and it's been one thing after another over the years. It's just,
the great teams that, towards the end of Lute Olson era, and then the transition, those two interim coaches, and then the Sean Miller era, the sort of rise and fall of that, or whatever you want to call it. And now we're into another thing. So there's always something, and it's sort of kept me going. Really, it's interesting.
On the court, this feels a little bit like Lute Olson to me. And again, Lute Olson's one of the 15 best college basketball coaches ever. So I'm not saying that Lloyd's going to have that success. But Bruce, there were so many games in the Lute era, and you were able to cover a lot of them, where the game would be like 17-14, and you'd get up to go to a soda, go to the bathroom, and you'd come back and it was 31-17. Like they just hit you with that run just immediately. And that's kind of reminiscent of what we've been watching here, at least so far this year, in that this team will hit you with a run when it doesn't look like you're playing well, and all of a sudden you went from being down 3 to up 13 in a period of about 3.5 minutes.
Yeah, and the thing, and we'll see if this is sustainable, but the thing that struck me is that not only are they doing that, but for the most part, they're not letting up. I mean, they don't take their foot off the accelerator. They'll get up by 15, 20 in the first half, and in the second half, they'll get up by 35, 40, and they end up winning by 50 on some of these teams. And, I think Washington, was a little bit different the other night last week, where they were struggling relatively with them, well into the second half. But that also was sort of a, weird defense they're playing off of, and coming back from a long Christmas break, made worse by some COVID cancellation. So, I can't really look at that, but yeah, they just, they're just full bore all the time. It's really impressive to see.
What Tommy Lloyd covering Tommy Lloyd. Now, the thing that I like, the thing that I've always respected about you, and when I do tell, I'm fairly friendly with most people in the media, but the person that I do adore the most, and I'll always say this, is Bruce Pascoe. Bruce is going to blush and say you shouldn't, but it's true. Bruce is the man. Oh. The one thing that I respect about you, Bruce, I'm not going to let you get out of this one. The one thing that I respect more about you than almost anyone else is you are that old school journalist, and that you ask the questions that a lot of people just don't, that just don't ask, because everybody wants to be chummy with each other and whatnot. Take me through your mindset a little bit when you go into like a post game or when you do an interview. What are you trying to get out of the coach? What are you trying to talk about right there? Because it's definitely unique, and it's kind of it's an old school mentality that I think is sorely lacking in today's media.
Well, I mean, first of all, I think I'm lucky in that I'm full-time assigned to cover Arizona basketball. So, and in fairness to everybody, there's
I think you cut out there for a second. Bruce, you there? All right, we got Bruce buffering. I think when Bruce, hold on just a second. I think Bruce will be hopping back in here in just a second. But I think where I was going with that is that Bruce is the guy that will ask the questions that not a lot of people will ask. All right, we got you back there, Bruce. You're good.
Sorry, I don't know what happened there. Said unstable connection. Sorry about that. But
no, don't worry about it.
But no, I feel like
yeah.
I just feel like it's my job to go as deep as I can. I'm lucky to be full time covering this team, and a lot of other guys, have other things that other teams are covering or other jobs are doing, and so there's that. And I just look as a thing. Going out again.
Yeah.
Is it going out?
Okay,
again?
You're back. You're back. You're good.
Yeah. So anyway,
yeah,
sorry.
You're good. Okay. You're good.
So I just feel like my background's in kind of I'm a news sports writer basically, and so I'm always looking at the newsy angle as well as the team played. Obviously, I want to cover what the team is doing and how they kind of bring that emotion out. Two things in the post game: you want to feel like what were their emotions when certain things happened, and then also what were their decisions that went behind them and so that hopefully people can feel a little more knowledge about how the game actually played out that they might not have been able to know just watching it either in person or on television. So there's that. And then a lot of times there's just news from day to day. What's going on? Is this guy hurt? Is this, how does this affect your rotation? And, and these are questions we all ask at a time. And then, and then when there's people missing or, suspensions or whatever, it gets a little bit trickier. And we've got one right now with Kim Aiken. And I feel like, at the risk of asking that question too much, I just feel like, here's a guy who's been away from the team for more than a month and it hasn't been explained. And he may very well have an issue that's a personal issue that is his business. And that's certainly respectable. But there's a balancing act with sometimes, fans need to know, or, at least in general, what's going on. And so those questions have to be asked, and it's not fun. I don't want to intrude on anybody's personal life if that's what's going on, but there's, again, it's a balancing act, so but sometimes you feel like you have to do that. But that said, there's been very little controversy or any hard questions that really have needed to be asked at this point with this particular staff. I think we went through a lot in the last, obviously in the last 4 years where it was really tough, and you just hope that you just ask the questions that need to be asked, and if they, maybe a follow-up, and then, in a lot of cases, if they don't want to answer, then there's really no point, and keep going, and you let their lack of responses speak for themselves. And that's what we had to do a lot. And, and then you hope in the long term that people you're dealing with, recognize you're doing your job, and you're not trying to go after anybody. And I think, I think most of the people I've dealt with over the years have realized that. And so in the long run, that does help you.
Now, I think when I look at this team right here, I think that a two-part question here. First of all, foremost, I think the thing that's really shocked me, and there's been a lot of different things that have been really impressive, but Ben Mathurin is one of the handful of best players in the country. It kind of feels like, every single game, there's a point where it looks like a team might go on a run and he stops it with a three or a timely bucket. You saw that against Illinois. You saw that against Tennessee, even though they lost that game. He has really kind of been the impetus to me for what they've been able to do, because he's really kind of emerged as that frontline player right there going into Pac-12 play. Watching him up close, Bruce, because I know you got a really good seat at the home games right there. What has stuck out to you the most about his improvement?
Oh, I'd say probably his consistency a little bit, because you saw it last year at times. I mean, just that game at Oregon State really jumped out at me, where his first start, he had whatever it was, 32 or something, and just dominated. And he had a few games like that, but he also had a couple of 2-point games, and just disappeared and didn't work out or whatever. And then this year, I think it's been, especially after those first 3 or 4 games when it seemed like he was struggling to kind of get to work into this offense, because it is a different role for him, more probably as much as anybody, just that, with the way Miller ran sets for him, last year and this year, it's more a free-flowing deal where he has to figure out where to be. And granted, guys are starting to look for him now, but it's a little bit more freelance and just kind of learning to read and react for everybody. And I think for him as much as anybody. So just to see him grasp onto that and become, more consistent at the same time. And on top of that, doing it, in really hostile environments. In Illinois and Tennessee, he both, played well in, both those games. And those are really tough places to play where, it'd be easy to get frustrated and, or maybe get in foul trouble or anything like that. And, it was the same Ben Mathurin we've seen. I mean, that's probably the thing that jumped out at me the most.
All right, Bruce, I know you're up against the clock, so I got a couple minutes with you. A couple questions here. You've covered teams in the past that could have won the national championship. 01 always, in my opinion, is the best team that I've ever seen here. There's been other teams as well. Does this feel like a team, when you watch them up close, that can, if things break the right way, win the national championship?
Yeah, I mean, the key there is, and this is probably true with everybody, but the key is things breaking the right way and nobody getting hurt. Because there's not a whole lot of depth on this team. There is some depth, but especially if Aiken stays out, you saw it the other night. I think they had 3 or 5 points from the bench. I mean, it's pretty much the starters that are doing it for this team, and with a little bit of help here and there, and depending on the matchups. And so that'd be my only concern looking at it that way. In a deep tournament run situation, they're just going to have to keep having everything fire on all those cylinders. But they're certainly talented enough to make a run like that. If everybody's there and and everything like that. But it'll be interesting to see. I think we'll know. It's still a little bit hard to answer that question exactly right now, because they still haven't gotten into the depths of Pac-12 thanks
Right.
to all these COVID pauses. I think, it'd be a lot easier to answer this question if they had already gone to LA and played USC and UCLA, and then we would have known how they matched up, and, maybe they would have taken care of that weekend. But, maybe some things would be exposed, maybe not, but we'll see.
All right, Bruce, now the college game has been changed entirely with the NIL, the name, image, and likeness, where you got people that, guys endorsing products, guys endorsing different, avenues. And I think we're going to see that a lot here. So we haven't had a reporter, in my opinion, that's been able to enter the NIL scene. What about if Del Taco approached Bruce Pascoe about an NIL endorsement? Would that be an option?
That would be, but I can assure you that absolutely nobody cares what a reporter is endorsing or anything else. So I don't know how well that would go, but I will say, they have a good product at a good price. So, and it's near U of A, so you can't complain.
Right.
I'll even say this. Years ago, I went there once, and Jim Living was in there eating lunch by himself. And I just thought that's also a good thing about Del Taco is you can go there and probably nobody's going to notice you if you're somebody as high profile as Jim, and you can eat in peace.
Bruce, I literally live about 2 minutes away from Del Taco. So next time you go there on your lunch or you're reloading your gift card, let me know and I'll meet up there with you.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, Bruce, I know you got to run, but again, man, as always, I really appreciate your work. Tell people really quickly what you're working on, where they can find you and everything.
Oh yeah, it's Tucson.com. We bought that domain a few years ago, and that's sort of the easiest way. We have the Wildcaster app, if you sign up for that, you can even get email newsletters and push alerts where the buzzer story, we'll send it to you right away. Anything news breaking and stuff like that. And then on Twitter, it's just my name, Bruce Pascoe, Pascoe, and go from there. But yeah, we try and be on, and then we've got on Facebook, it's all under Wildcaster and Tucson.com as well.
All right, Bruce, you're my man. By the way, I want to give Bruce a special shout out. A while back, I was going, transitioning from, job to job, going through some uneven times. And Bruce Bruce knows that I'm a basketball nerd and that I've always been fascinated by what he did. And I'm just going to pull it off real quick.
Yeah, no, that's classic.
This shows you though, and this is why I'll always love Bruce. Well, amongst many reasons, Bruce sent this to me. And, it really brightened up my day. And I got to say, every time I see it, I chuckle a little bit and I thank you. And I really do thank you, man. And I thank you for your friendship.
Oh, yeah. No, thanks for having me. And I'm glad you're making use of that because honestly, it was in a box and, I look at it from time to time, but it was like, I knew that you get more out of it. Yeah. And it's just kind of funny.
5 times a week.
Stacey Ogman and Sean Elliott, I believe, on the cover there, right?
5 times a week, people see that right behind me, Bruce. So again, I appreciate you, my man.
Awesome.
All right, dude.
All right.
I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot.
Again.
Okay.
Right,
take care.
All right. Bruce Pascoe, one of my absolute favorite people in the entire media industry, one of the nicest guys you will ever meet, one of the most pure-hearted people you'll ever meet. Bruce, thanks again for hopping on there. Really appreciate you. All right. Now, we got some recruiting news to get to. Gene M. Got a question right here from you. We'll hop that in a second. But first of all, let's talk about the DraftKings Sportsbook app, code word PHNX. All right, great deal going on right now. You have wild card weekend coming up. You throw down $5 on an NFL game, and if that team wins, you get $280 in free plays, 56-1 odds. It's that simple. It's that easy. Now, you're saying, Mike, who should I pick? I would probably pick the Chiefs this week. The Pittsburgh Steelers stink. They have no business being in the playoffs, and the Kansas City Chiefs are good. That's basically where you go with that. Get $280 in free plays. Thank Mike Luke for it. All right. Now, again, this is for Arizona only. Eligibility restrictions do apply. If you got a gambling problem, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. They'll get you taken care of. Again, the DraftKings Sportsbook app, code word PHNX. Take the Kansas City Chiefs, and if you're not, you don't want to do that, I would maybe take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's what I'd roll with. All right, let's talk a little bit of recruiting right now because there's definitely some good stuff going on right here. We're going to get to football in just a second, but Gene M. Asked about any insight into recruiting. Feels dry compared to Miller's. Well, this is a drastically different recruiting approach that this team is, or that this coaching staff has taken, in that, joking aside, they're going to be a little bit more I think, specific with who they're recruiting. They're not just going to go for, there's a 5-star kid. We think that, by whatever means necessary, we can land that kid. This is definitely a more precise approach. I'll put it to you like that. And Bruce mentioned it. Kylan Boswell, top 25 kid, 2023 point guard, is somebody that I would again, these things are fluid, but I would expect Arizona to have a very, very good opportunity to land this young man. He's the kind of guy, he's probably not a one and done, but he comes in here and he would start immediately. Kirk Risa, depending on the eligibility with COVID and everything, would be a junior or a senior at the time. And Boswell would land right in there. He's not a great athlete, but he's incredibly skilled and he understands basketball. He's a guy that probably has an NBA future. That is the guy that right now I think all eyes are pretty much on at this point. He is again, he would be a really nice domino to fall. Right now it seems like it's Arizona and Illinois. And like Bruce said, Boswell just talked about earlier about how he was going to be he was going to look at it and but he really liked Arizona, and he really liked how Arizona plays basketball, that style of play that we talked about. And I think you're going to see a lot of that going forward because it's a unique style of play that you have to be able to, that you can sell. All right. Now we're going to get to football here in just a second, but Arizona Department of Health Services has basically something that everybody should hop on. Children 5 and older are now eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine. The vaccine is the best tool we have to reduce the chances of getting COVID sick with COVID-19. The COVID-19 vaccine can reduce the risk of being hospitalized or dying from the disease. It's free. It's highly effective. And so just visit azhealth.gov, find vaccine for a location near you. Everybody knows somebody that has been affected by COVID. If there's any way that I think that we can all reduce our risk, to try to get back to normal, get in. If you can, get in, get that vaccine. Again, there's the information that you have right there. We're all in this together. So again, that's where you want to go. Get that COVID-19 vaccine shot if you can. Okay. Arizona football. Big new commitment. The fish train just keeps going. I just made that up myself. But all right, Tia Savea. He is a defensive lineman from UCLA that just announced that he is coming to the University of Arizona. Former top 200 kid, 1 year removed, 4-star kid, a big get for a multitude of reasons. Because a lot of people are saying, it's great. You got all these skill guys. You got all the speedy cars on the perimeter, but I don't necessarily have anybody in the trenches. This isn't an elixir for that, but this certainly is a guy that will come in here and I think will be able to change the equation almost immediately on the D line. Because you look on the D line, and again, there are some guys that could play a little bit last year. You had a Trayvon Mason who's moved on to the NFL. You had a Keon Bars. You had some guys. Jalen Harris is coming back. But this is the kid. This is the kind of big kid, the 4-star type guy that I think Arizona fans would really like to see come in here. And Arizona's not done either. That's what's fun about this. You've got probably 5 or 6 more scholarships that you can lay out. And again, that doesn't even put out there, with attrition, maybe some guys moving on, maybe some guys staying, whatever the case may be. But this is the kind of kid that you need now. I feel pretty safe in saying that Arizona right now has as talented a wide receiving core as there is in the conference. And again, that's crazy to say because you maybe went from one of the least to one of the most right there. And it all starts with all the new additions. You've got the, Tatora McMillan. You've got a Kean Burnett. You've got a Jacob Cowing coming in from UTEP. Jacob Cowing, 1,300 yards. Tatora McMillan, 5-star kid. Kean Burnett, 4-star pass-catching tight end. You've got guys that are coming back, obviously, in a Dorian Singer, a Jamari Joyner, who I think could really surprise some people this year. So you've got those, I don't want to say taken care of, but you've got some guys for the quarterback to throw to. Now, you've also got the quarterback to throw to him now in Jaden DeLaura. You still got your quarterback of the future in Noah Fafita. Now, you got to start getting guys that are impact players on the offensive and defensive line. This is the first domino to drop right here. Savea, again, I don't know that he's going to start from day one, but this is a guy that, barring something unforeseen, is going to be a contributor immediately and probably will be playing pretty steady, and if not starting pretty quickly. So you've got him in the fold right now. That's a big, big get, obviously. You still got 4 or 5 scholarships. That's going to be interesting to see. I would imagine they all go defense/offensive line. Jed Fish knows a lot more about this than I would do, but I think Arizona is far from done. And, that's without going into too many details, there's definitely some other guys out there in the portal that would make Arizona better and would make Arizona better immediately on the line. All right. You should, if you're not on the AZ Wildcats podcast, hit subscribe. You should be go to PHNX, check out everything that they got going on right there. You get a new membership, you get one of those really snazzy Back the A t-shirts right there for free. If you go to the locker, all kinds of good stuff. T-shirts $29.99, decals $5.90 or $4.99. They got you covered. So before we sign off here, again, I want to help you make a little bit of money by going to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, code word PHNX. Now, in the past, you've had some pretty good deals. This one's a little bit different. You've got a deal where you throw down $5 on a wild card weekend, which are generally easy games to be able to pick, or at least some of them. And if you win, you get $280 in free plays, 56-1 odds. That's simple, that easy. Okay. And you're saying, all right, Mike, well, can you give me a little bit of advice? Well, sure, I can give you a little bit of advice. I would take the Kansas City Chiefs to smack the Pittsburgh Steelers, but you don't even need them to smack them. You just need them to win by 1 point, which feel pretty comfortable they will. You don't like that? You can always go with Tom Brady. He'll probably beat the Eagles, where you've got a Jalen Hurts in there. So again, check out the DraftKings Sportsbook app, code word PHNX, and subscribe to the AZ Wildcats podcast. Okay. We got a bunch of stuff coming up for you this week. We got a post-game show tomorrow. So again, Arizona basketball back in action, 11 o'clock. We should be on about 11:10 p.m. Hopefully breaking down another Arizona beatdown. Then we're going to talk a little bit Arizona women's basketball Friday. We're hopeful that we can get a coach on here shortly to talk about everything that's going on. And got some other things in the works as well. But for everybody out there, can't thank you enough. We'll be back with you tomorrow. And for Bruce Pascoe, appreciate you again. I'm Mike Luke. You have been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.